Hello, and welcome to Relevate Presents Scholarship, the podcast where we use real research to analyze, scrutinize, and humanize your favorite TV and movie couples. I'm your host, Eric Goodcase. Hello, and welcome to a special Canadian edition of Relevate Presents Scholarship. We'll be talking about the Canadian drama Degrassi today, and we'll be talking about that with Sarah Kuborn, who is a certified family life educator, and will be starting as a family studies professor at Southeast Missouri State in the fall. Thanks for joining us, Sarah.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem at all. Any excuse to talk about Degrassi is
Yes.
good for me. So I wanted to give you the opportunity to start and talk a little bit about your research interests, kind of what you've been up to in that part of your life.
Yeah. Well, a lot of my research focuses around family life education and sexuality education. Right now, I'm working on using young adult literature to facilitate sexuality communication between parent and child, specifically adolescents, to see if that assists in any of the comfort that both of them feel. And then hopefully family life educators can use that in their programming.
Very cool. Yeah, and I know that in the first episode, Amber talked a little bit about that a lot of times teenagers do want to get information from their parents, but a lot of times either parents feel awkward or kids feel awkward. So this, using media like a book or something along those lines could kind of facilitate that conversation.
Yeah, teachable moments. You could use Degrassi.
Yeah, there is certainly lots in Degrassi. That would be great talking points for relationships.
Yes, great discussion starters.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get into it. So because there is so much Degrassi to talk about, there's the original show in the 80s, Degrassi Junior High and Degrassi High. There's the Next Generation, and now there's Next Class, which is on Netflix. Just to kind of keep our own sanity, we're focusing on the Next Generation, which starts in early 2001. Yeah. And we're going to mainly focus on some of like the beginning characters. I didn't follow the show after like Spinner and Emma and those characters left. I don't know how long you followed.
Yeah, I didn't follow that after
So if
they
you're
left the high school.
Really big fans of some of the characters that came later. I know I've done some reading and I know that there's a huge following for Claire and Eli. I'm not familiar with them at all, so I apologize to huge fans of them or some of the other characters that kind of come on later. Mainly for time, we're just not going to be able to get too far. Maybe there'll be a part 2 in the future. Who knows? But we're mainly going to focus on relationships for characters in the first couple that kind of get introduced in the first couple seasons. If those characters end up with someone or we end up talking about someone from later seasons, that's fine. But we probably will stick to some of the earlier ones. And the way we wanted to structure this was we're kind of rewriting Degrassi history. So Sarah and I will kind of take turns talking about different characters and their relationship history, and then we'll kind of, I guess, almost put them in a better relationship than they ended up in, or put them in a better relationship situation. Because based on how the show goes, if you've ever watched the show, you know that school is cursed, which means that you can't be alive in that school and not have terrible things happen. Because it's a very dramatic show. There's not very many healthy relationships either.
Nope.
So we are taking the liberty of putting them in very healthy relationships by changing Degrassi history a little bit, rewriting. So we kind of went through and did this on our own, and then we'll be kind of like getting together. And so the things that Sarah shares will be the first time I'm hearing it and vice versa. So Sarah, what was your process like kind of putting this together?
Okay, so it was a long process.
Yeah.
My eyes hurt so much from watching so much TV. But I started out just taking notes about any characteristics of the characters. So the beginning characters of Emma and Manny and all of them, just who they are as people, what their interests are, how they behave. And then I realized there were way too many characters for me to do that with all of them. And they changed so much throughout the seasons that it was difficult. So then I started just taking notes of who was dating who, or who hooked up with who, or who was flirting with who. And that got overwhelming. But I made it through. And then I just put people with people that I was like, this is the relationship, this is the person that I think they would have fit best with.
Yeah. That's kind of the approach I took, is I tried to like take a big picture approach. Like, okay, like from what I know about Degrassi history, what would make the most sense for these characters based on their development and maybe where they were at certain times. And mine's kind of sprinkled with stuff that changes like early on and stuff that changes later on. So I tried to give a good mix of it, but it was really hard because like I said, there's a lot of interesting relationships that kind of happen. So I figure we should get started. We have a lot to cover, but whatever it takes, I know we can make it through. If we just hold out, I know we can make it through.
Oh, my roommates got so annoyed with
that song. Yeah, that song, it does get really annoying.
I was so glad they took out the lyrics for the later seasons.
Yeah.
That was nice.
Yeah, I also agree. My fiance is not a huge fan of the theme song either. I usually try to skip ahead on YouTube. Yes. But yeah, by the way, all the seasons are on YouTube if you want to check it out. But yeah, it definitely I enjoy when they take the words out of the theme song by the end. All right, so we want to get started. You can you want to choose the first character we talk about?
Yes, I want to choose Emma.
Okay, let's talk about,
because she's the first person you see.
Emma Nelson, yeah.
In season 1.
Yeah. And she's actually the reason Next Generation started, because Spike was a character in Degrassi High and Degrassi Junior High, and Emma was born on Degrassi Junior High and High, and that's kind of what...
She's perfect to start with then.
Yeah, it's meant to be. So let's go through Emma's dating history.
Yeah.
So the big one being Sean.
Yes.
She dates Sean.
The big real relationship.
Yeah, she dates Sean early on in season 1. They break up. They get back together. They break up.
Yeah, there's a lot of off and on there.
There's some off and on there. Then she dates Chris super briefly. Chris was a very brief character in general, mostly just to date Emma and then leave.
They break up over the summer.
Yeah, and then you don't even see their breakup. They just kind of happen to break up. Then she dates Peter, which was a total train wreck. What a terrible
person. I couldn't remember his name.
Yeah.
And I put him down as loser guy when I was taking notes because I just did not like
He's
him
a terrible
at
person.
all.
They try to redeem him later in the later seasons, but I just can't get over how terrible a person he is.
So bad.
And then Emma gets back with Sean after he comes back. And then Sean leaves.
Yes.
And then, I'm trying to remember, she dates Kelly in college. She dates her college roommate. There's a lot that goes on with her. And then the very end of Emma's entire story arc is in the movie where she marries Spinner, a character who she barely had several. Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
You didn't know this?
No, I haven't seen the movie.
Okay. So in Degrassi Takes Manhattan, Spinner and Jane break up, and Emma and Manny and Jay are trying to cheer Spinner up. So they go to Niagara Falls and gamble. I think it's Niagara Falls. And they get like Vegas married. And then the rest of the movie is them deciding whether or not they should stay together or not. Spoiler alert, they do, and they get married. So
for reals.
The entire story arc of Emma ends with her marrying Spinner. So doesn't make any sense.
No.
There was no sign of them being compatible or interested in each other early on. There was no sign that they really are all that great at communicating with each other. It was just kind of...
Yeah, they barely talk to each other. Really.
Yeah, they just threw two characters together at the end.
Oh, God.
And this is after Emma burns down the dot.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's... Yeah, it was just a whole mess.
Goodness.
So a lot there for Emma's history. Oh, and she also has a thing with Jay.
Yes, I was going to mention that.
Wouldn't call that a relationship, but certainly
She also dates Damien.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about Damien.
Yes, who is the guy that comes from the other school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he only comes on for like a season.
Yes, he's only involved in season 7.
Yeah, and he cheats on her with Liberty.
Yeah, at prom.
At prom. Poor Emma.
I know.
Emma has a rough.
She has a really bad history.
Yeah.
Oh, she goes through so much.
She really does. I mean, the very first episode is her having kind of an online boyfriend who turns out to be a sexual predator.
Yeah.
So she's been through quite a bit. So let's give Emma a happy ending.
Yes.
Maybe involve Spinner. I don't know what you put, but let's give Emma a happy ending that she didn't get in the show. What do you think is her happy ending?
Of course, would have put her with Sean.
Yeah, naturally. Yeah.
I love Sean, and I love them together. They communicate well.
Mm-hmm.
They work well. Her family loves them.
Mm-hmm.
He loves them.
Yeah. Snake and Spike really kind of adopt Sean.
Yeah. When he
Especially
comes back from duty, he stays with Emma while Emma's dating Damien.
Mm-hmm. I forgot about that.
And when he leaves, he says, "You are all that I would come back to if I were to come back." Yeah. And there's a huge bond there.
Yeah. They were on and off, and I think Sean could use some work on terms of like talking through some things. I think there's a lot of anger, and like a lot of the issues that he has with Emma are kind of born out of him kind of like not being able to kind of regulate some of that anger that he has based on his background. He's had a rough upbringing, and he was kind of supposed to be kind of the hard character with a soft inside, but he still has some of that anger there. But I really like Sean and Emma together as well. My rewrite is that Sean doesn't enlist in the army.
Yes.
That's where
I was so surprised when that happened.
I was too. It kind of makes sense in some ways, in that he can kind of continue in his interests in like mechanic type stuff, and it kind of gives him a community that he lacks.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was almost kind of out of nowhere as well.
That's how I felt.
Yeah. I
was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
What's
Maybe
happening?
They just had to write him off the show or something.
Yeah, possibly.
So mine was the same. So Sean and Emma end up together was my rewrite for Emma. I think they bring out some good in each other. I think she gets him to talk about certain things. Mm-hmm. He feels really comfortable with her in ways that he doesn't feel comfortable with others. They were really mature about how they handled sexuality, and really mature about when they had problems. Most of the time, I think when they were really young, it's to be expected they didn't handle it super well. Like the second time they broke up was, I believe, that time where he got really drunk at her house. I think that was the second time they broke up. I can't remember if that was the case or not.
That was season 3.
Yeah, 2 or 3. I don't remember. It was early on, but like 2. They were pretty young. But later on, like the breakup involved him enlisting in the army. Like he was making
that's his commitment.
Yeah. So it kind of is a very mature, like, we have different kind of like trajectories that we're on. So it's kind of a mature breakup in that sense. I wish he had talked about it more with her. I think it did kind of come out of
he just kind of said, "This is what I'm doing."
Yeah, they didn't really kind of talk it out at all.
And I also really love that Emma seemed like herself the most with him. Yeah. When she was with Damien, she was always trying to be this adventurous person that you just knew she wasn't. Mm-hmm. She's actually a very responsible person and is predictable, and she hated that. Yeah. Because she just wanted people to like her more. Mm-hmm. And with Sean, I just always felt like she felt comfortable. Yeah. It was the same with Kelly as well. She kind of tried to change who she was to kind of like be with Kelly, and then they ended up breaking up because she was kind of trying to change him. Mm-hmm. So they kind of went off a similar road. But I think you're right. I think she was the most herself with Sean. And like Sean respected her. So there's a scene right after. So Peter and her start dating, and Peter sets up a picnic, which would be like a really nice idea. But he brings fried chicken, clearly not knowing that Emma is vegetarian. And then a few episodes later, Sean puts together this whole dinner for her
with Tofurkey.
Yeah.
So like he kind of like gets her, and like they kind of allow each other to be themselves a little bit.
Yeah, they
but
respect each other.
Yeah.
Yep.
On a different level than I think they had on any other relationship. Well, Emma had any other relationship.
Yeah.
All right. Should we move on, or do you have any other Emma thoughts?
I'm good.
Okay. Who do I want to start with? All right, I'm going to go with what I thought was my most interesting, like out of the box one. So I'm going to go to Marco Degrassi.
Oh, okay.
So Marco's dating history is mostly wrapped up in Paige's brother Dylan.
Yes.
So he dates Dylan. Oh, actually, he first before he kind of understand, like knows where he's at in his sexuality, he starts dating Ellie.
Yes.
And they have a very adorable episode where they kind of get together and looked like things were kind of going up. But then Marco, who is played by Adamo, I don't want to say his last name, Ruggiero, and he is gay in real life as well. So I think, I wonder if that played into some of this too. But Marco started to kind of like question his sexuality, wasn't sure. And then as he kind of developed and grew, he started to kind of like understand that he was gay and that he was interested in men. And then his first kind of big crush was Dylan, Paige's brother. And then there's a few other relationships he has kind of in between. He dates this guy, Tim, really briefly, was never really into him. And then same thing after Dylan breaks up with him again. In the second part, he dates Eric.
Yes.
And he wasn't really that interested in Eric either.
No.
So really, Marco's dating history is Dylan, who he was so in love with.
Yeah.
And two guys he didn't really care for very much.
Yeah.
So what was your happy ending for Marco?
He doesn't stay with any of them.
Okay.
I didn't like Dylan.
I didn't either. I'm so glad you said that.
He seemed selfish and didn't really respect Marco.
Yeah. I think he liked how much Marco liked him more than he liked Marco.
Yes.
That was the impression I got.
Yeah. It was kind of like Marco's on the back burner, just in case, you know?
Yeah.
He's there. If
even
we break up, he'll still probably date me again.
Even when they lived together, I got that sense.
Yeah.
Like, he just didn't seem that into Marco as Marco. I think he just liked that Marco was so into him.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And like when Dylan went off to play hockey, he didn't even like tell Marco about it. He was having all these meetings behind Marco's back, and
he wasn't honest about it at all.
Yeah, not even mentioning the fact that the first time they broke up was because, having an open relationship is one thing, but you have to communicate that with your partner before you start doing that. Otherwise, that's cheating. It's not an open relationship.
And that's what they call it in the seasons, is cheating.
It is. It's and they do refer to it. I think Dylan wouldn't refer to it that way, but that's because he's kind of a jerk.
That's because he's Dylan.
Yeah. So sorry,
who did you
started to go off.
Who did you put him with?
So did you have anything else for him, or
no? I think he can find someone else in the future.
Yeah. And he actually, I think he could benefit from some single life too.
Yeah.
In some of the later episodes, you could start to notice that he really struggled being alone or not part of something. And he almost I think he makes out with Ellie.
In season 7, he realizes he's really dependent on Ellie.
Yeah.
And they decide to move apart.
Yeah. I think he could use some exploration. But
Yes.
I actually went a different direction.
Okay.
So this is based on something I heard. So when when the next class came out, they did some kind of they did a throwback episode where some of the old characters came out. Yeah, so I'll let you know where that is. I think it's season 2 of Next Class. Okay. Episode 4 or something like that. They have some characters come back. And when the characters came back, they did a lot of behind the scenes stuff, interviews, and the guy that plays Marco does a bunch of interviews with people. And we find out that there was a storyline at one point where Craig was going to be a love interest for Marco potentially. Ooh. So that's what I have as mine, is that Craig comes in and is gay and kind of is, or bi, either way. and is a love interest for Marco.
Okay.
So here's where this kind of came from, because I'm putting a person who was the victim of cheating with someone who is a serial cheater.
Yeah.
So I was a little worried about that, but here's where I'm kind of trying to like save that. Craig talks about things with Marco he doesn't talk about with anything else. Whenever Craig had like a problem with Ashley or Manny or whoever he was dating, Marco was the guy he would talk to. He was kind of like able to be vulnerable with Marco in a way that he couldn't with other people, like even like Jimmy and Spinner and his other friends. And they did share a kiss. I don't know if you remember that at all.
I don't.
In the episode where Dylan kind of brings up the open relationship thing, Marco was trying to like make Dylan jealous. And so he kisses Craig, and then Craig has the great line where he's just like, when in doubt, you kiss Craig? Go talk to him. So that part was really great. I just liked how they could, and that was an instance where Craig was talking to Marco. It wasn't like just Craig could talk to Marco in that way. Marco could talk to Craig in that way. So that was my hope for them. That was my most, maybe not my most off the wall, but I think that was the most different I went, because I didn't like Dylan either, and Marco wasn't interested in any other guys he kind of like dated at all. So I had to go off script a little bit. And
that works.
The information I learned about Craig, I think, kind of put it over the top. And I was like, yeah, I could see that. I could see them being a good couple. I don't know if they would have made it overall. I think the cheating thing is a big deal. I don't know how that would have worked, but they were compatible and good communicators. And I think for me, with this list, I think that some of the temptation is like they're so cute together, they have so much chemistry. Yeah. But to really think about like how they communicate, and I think Marco and Craig is a really good example of that. Like, chemistry can only get you so far. Yeah. Being able to communicate things is really important, and Marco and Craig, I think, had that level of communication that could set them apart from maybe some of the other characters that didn't have such great relationships.
Definitely.
Yeah. So that was my fun one. Well, hopefully not just the only fun one. But, all right, your turn. Who do you want to talk about next?
Let's talk about Ashley.
This one I struggled with.
I did too.
Yeah.
Okay, so she dates Jimmy. Then she dates Craig. Then she dates Jimmy again. And then, she hooks up with Sean. Oh,
that's right, in the Ecstasy episode.
Yep.
And then almost dates him the next season.
I have Alex and Ashley on here too, but I don't remember those.
She does date a guy in London.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Yeah, so she has some London boyfriend that you never meet but is alluded to.
Yeah.
And then I think she ends going on tour with Craig, right?
She does.
So I don't know if they're back together or not. Like in the
movie,
if it's
just a tour.
In the movie, Craig has a different girlfriend.
Okay.
So it's not Ashley, but they do go on tour together. So I don't know if they rekindle anything. I imagine they might, just because they're together. But so yeah, she kind of bounces around a little bit. So what was your happy ending?
I don't know, honestly.
Yeah.
So it changed based on her development throughout. So developmentally, I think when she was a senior, she was a fifth year actually.
Right.
She was really good with Jimmy.
Mm-hmm.
Their senior year together was good.
I agree.
Until Jimmy went to work on, what is her name?
Are you talking about Tracy or Trina?
Yes.
Trina.
Mm-hmm. Trina, when Jimmy gets with Trina, I liked that, but I didn't. I liked how Jimmy and Trina could talk together. That was great. But Ashley was so supportive of Jimmy at that time.
Until the end.
Yes.
Yeah. Because he did that rap track over her song.
Yeah.
And she cut it out. Like, I thought that, like, without telling him, I'm like, that's a we're going to break up move if I've ever seen one.
Yeah.
Like, you don't. And that was the first time you hear Drake rap.
Yes.
Ever.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not ever. But, like, I'm pretty sure that's the first time Drake, like, raps
Yeah, is when he's doing that with Ashley.
Oh, actually, you know what? He does that like really sexist rap with Spinner a few seasons before.
Oh,
so that's really your first Drake rap. But like the first legit rap he does is with Ashley,
Mm-hmm.
and then he just cuts her up. She cuts him off the track, and
Yeah, it's not okay.
oof.
They seemed pretty compatible with the music stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
They wanted to go into law together at one point too.
And that's the part that I was thinking for their senior year as well. Is like they had the similar ambitions. Their life course seemed like it was going to stay on track with one another. They had a good foundation from prior time of dating.
Yeah.
They've been through a lot together.
Yeah.
And they still made it through sometimes. But then Ashley had to go and do that.
Yeah. Ashley was very self-destructive. Well, you know what? I'm not going to say self-destructive because I think it's important to like recognize like these were pretty young relationships.
Yes.
And you know what? She had to make a decision between kind of independence and being in a relationship a couple times.
Yeah.
One being with Craig and like going to London. Craig wanted to go with her to London. She's like,
that was a good call by Ashley.
It was a good call by Ashley. And I think that her kind of like prioritizing herself and her goals, life goals, was a good decision in that case. I think with Jimmy, it's probably also a good decision in terms of like, you know what? I'm not so serious about this relationship where I'm going to put that above my life goals.
Mm-hmm.
So it just, the second time was definitely a little bit harsher and I don't like how she did it, but I think she maybe made a good decision in that way. So I wouldn't call her self-destructive except in the case of doing ecstasy in season 1. That was the self-destructive part.
Yeah.
That was...
not smart.
No, it's just so out of character and so like it completely changed the trajectory of her as a character.
Mm-hmm.
She was never the same afterwards, and that was my rewrite. Is that she doesn't take the ecstasy, the Jimmy relationship kind of stays from the beginning. I don't know if it would have stayed going on, and like I think based on her personality, she still would put her needs at like maybe not always like above the needs of Jimmy or the relationship, but just kind of like she would still kind of like make it important her independence and her life goals. But it'd be interesting to see like what their trajectory would look like if that had never happened.
Yeah, like Drake's a rapper now.
Yeah, like she could have done really well. And side note about Drake, I'm still waiting for your apology about referring to Degrassi as the bottom. So whenever you want to send that to me and to the rest of the Degrassi fans, I'll be listening. Thank you. Hey everyone, Eric here. I wanted to address the last comment we made just now about Drake. So we recorded this at the beginning of the month, and I'm not sure how he heard about it, but clearly Drake was upset about what I had said and released a music video detailing how he was upset. And not only that, included the entire Degrassi cast almost in what was just a beautiful video. So I am sorry, Drake. I'm sorry I made you upset. I know you have other beefs that are probably bigger and more important that you have to deal with. So like dealing with me probably wasn't your favorite thing to do, but I really appreciate it, man. Thank you. That was an amazing video. I loved it so much. So thank you so much for what you did. And back to the podcast.
All right. Can we talk about Craig and Ashley?
Yeah, let's talk about Craig and Ashley. We're already on Ashley.
We're still on Ashley, yeah. I liked them together, except Craig was dealing with a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that both of them kind of went their separate ways and got the independence and the kind of soul searching that they needed to do.
Yeah.
And then when they go on tour together, when she walks up to the stage, I don't think it's because she and him are having a thing together. And I don't see that actually happening.
Yeah, and based on the movie, the last time you see Craig, it doesn't.
Yeah. So I think Jimmy, is the best one.
I think that was kind of where I was coming from with it too. I think that was her most healthy relationship. The way they communicated at that age was really strong. And even though like Ashley had some things that drive me crazy.
Yeah.
Like the way she talks to Terry is pretty rude.
Mm-hmm.
And the way she kind of like, I don't know, handled some of the stuff with Jim, like where she got tired of him but then didn't, and like that could have used some more communication. I'm talking about, but like again, that's expected at that age, and just the fact that they recovered pretty well. And I think that's really important. Like when you have tough times in any relationship, no matter the age, like how you recover from things is really important.
Definitely.
And I was actually really impressed with how the two of them at that age recovered from something like that, and like were able to kind of like continue moving forward, and not in a way that was compromising their identity or compromising things about them.
Memory that sticks out the most to me is when Ashley and Jimmy want to have sex after the accident. And they seem like they're communicating so well about it. And
even when
they're
Jimmy
talking
was
through it.
being a jerk.
Yeah.
Like kicked her out.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't have
felt
sex.
Bad, yeah.
Just the fact that they could go back and have that conversation afterwards.
Yep. Yes.
Should we move into Craig then, since we started a little bit already?
Yeah, let's do Craig.
So, Craig, let's see, kind of has a flirtation with Emma and Manny at the very beginning of his story arc, and nothing really come from it except for a date with Manny where they have two different ideas of what happened. Do you remember this one?
Mm-mm.
Oh, it's one of my absolute favorite episodes.
I'm going to have to go back and watch
I think it's season 2. So this is
Okay.
before Manny has her makeover.
Yes.
And they go out on a date, and you don't see the date at all. You just see them recollecting about the date later. And Manny thinks it's the most magical thing that ever happened. And Craig is just like, he looks like he saw a ghost when he's talking about it. He's just like, I don't know what happened. Like, she throws a ball, like Carnival was there, and she like throws a ball and it bounces back and hits him in the head. And like, there's like a ton of stuff that goes wrong that like they see very differently. And it's not so differently that it's like unrealistic. You could actually see them each having like their own perspective on what happened, just because Manny is so wrapped up in Craig. And Craig, by the end of it, Craig says something along the lines of, Manny reminds me of my 6-year-old half-sister, which is, I think, kind of an Easter egg type joke, because that actually is Manny's sister. The girl that plays Angie is Manny's sister in real life.
Super cool.
Yeah, so I think that was like a little joke, like, oh, it reminds me of my sister, and you're like, oh, I get it. So that doesn't like go super well. Nothing comes of that. Oh gosh, the episode ends with Manny trying to cheer Craig up, because Craig's kind of been like cold towards her because he doesn't like the date very much. So she like does this whole like locker decoration of Craig, and Craig like is just like so distraught, and Manny's like, what, you don't like your locker? And he's like, no, I don't like you. And that's how the episode ends. Or it's like, it's you that I don't like.
Oh my god.
And then they do the zoom in on Manny's face and the episode ends.
And then they date later.
They do. Yeah. So she has her makeover where she goes from cute to hot. It's kind of her. And it's very funny watching this as an adult, because I remember as a kid watching and being like, wow, she really changed. And like, as an adult watching, it's like, oh, she still looks like she's 12. So she goes through her makeover. Craig and Ashley are dating, and then everything hits the wall with this. So Craig and Ashley have a fight related to basically whether or not they were going to have sex. And then him sharing that with Spinner and her finding out, and this whole thing kind of happens. And then Manny kind of moves in on Craig while Craig's upset, and they hook up, and then they kind of like continually hook up, and kind of Manny wants Craig to break up with Ashley, and he's dating two women at once for a while, and then it all hits the fan. And then Craig dates Ashley after that again. So Ashley forgives him, and Craig dates.
So many back and forth. And then Ashley leaves for London. Craig has a second manic episode. Craig's diagnosed bipolar a little bit earlier. And then Craig dates Manny again while he's kind of doing his music thing. Then Craig does cocaine. Yes.
Manny wasn't a fan of that. So they break up, and then in the very last time you see Craig is in the Degrassi Goes to Hollywood movie, where Craig is dating a model, Yvonne or Yvette or something like that, and he's leading Ellie on the entire episode because Ellie was super into Craig for a long time, like obsessed with Craig, and then so he's leading Ellie on the whole time, and then he's like, "Oh, this is my girlfriend."
Oh my goodness.
And then I don't know if he breaks up with her or not, but at the end, him and Ellie make out at the airport, and they kind of like leave the door open in a potential relationship.
Okay.
So Craig is just kind of back to, I don't know what Craig's doing.
Just being Craig.
Yeah. So my ending for Craig is at the very end, he stays single, is learning that I'm not doing very great in relationships. I'm cheating. I'm very wrapped up in relationship with Ashley. He was so dependent on Ashley that it kind of like really affected him after she wanted to go to London and take some space. That I think Craig needs to do some searching on his own.
Yeah.
Kind of like with Marco, what you said. I think he needs to. So that's my ending for Craig, is that he realizes that, like, I need to figure out what I want. Because I think he's searching for what he wants in different people. Mm-hmm. And I think he needs to kind of like almost grieve the fact that there isn't a perfect partner. Yeah. Like just the idea that when you choose a partner, you're giving up other people, other partners. Unless he was interested in kind of like polyamory or something along those lines. But I think if he even was in a relationship like that, he would still cheat. I think that's just kind of like part of his processes. Like he needing to kind of like learn basically what is it that he wants, and kind of like grieving the fact that he can't have everything. Even if he is in a polyamorous relationship with multiple people, like he's not going to have everything he wants in relationships. Kind of learning that and grieving that almost. What about you? What did you have for Craig?
I love your results. I had changed the story to where when Ellie was in the band, like Craig broke up with Manny and then they just stayed together. Craig and Ellie did. Cause like, you knew that Ellie loved him.
Ellie was super into him and like was not playing hard to get, or like not making it seem like she wasn't. She was pretty clear that she was.
Yes. Yeah. And he kept leading her on, and that was frustrating for me. So I just changed it all, and they.
So instead of him leading her on, they actually got together.
Yes.
Yeah. That's not a bad one. I think they actually had a pretty good relationship from what it seemed like.
Yeah, they were very close. Yeah. I felt like Craig could talk to Ellie about things that he couldn't talk to other people about. Ellie was always supportive. Yeah. Except I think Craig has Ellie wrapped around his finger a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I worried about with them.
Yeah. Especially with the cocaine thing when he lies to her and says that it's Manny's.
And she's dating Jesse at that time.
Yeah.
And she's still really caught up in Craig.
Mm-hmm. Just if Craig was different, just a little different, I would put them together. Yeah.
And maybe that changes his trajectory. Maybe if he, instead of leading her on, sees her as a potential dating partner and kind of like can connect in that way, he doesn't necessarily kind of like
go down this other path.
Yeah.
I think Ellie could have really helped him.
Yeah.
Not that she should have to, but.
True. Yeah.
But I think it would have been good for him.
Yeah.
I don't think Manny was any help.
No.
That just seemed superficial.
And that was another one where Manny was just super into Craig. And that was really what kind of kept them going more than anything else, it seems like.
Yeah. But I like your idea.
Yeah,
Craig, I think just soul searching.
He was the one I was struggling with a lot. Him and there's one other character that I really just struggled with. Like, I don't know where to go with this one. And then I was just like, you know what? He doesn't have to end up with someone. He needs to figure some stuff out. Especially just because, like, in the very last time you see him in the movie, where he's got a girlfriend and then like leads Ellie on, like very clearly leading Ellie on, and then makes out with her at the end. And just like, you know what? I think it's supposed to be like a moment, and I'm just like upset. By the way, Degrassi Goes Hollywood is just not a great representation of characters. Paige has a terrible storyline too. She becomes a jerk, and like her and Marco aren't friends by the end of it. It's just like it's terrible.
Gosh.
It's not a great swan song for them. Not like Spinner and Emma getting married. So I think it's your turn.
Okay, let's talk about Ellie since we
Let's
were
talk
just talking
about
about
Ellie.
her.
Ellie's a favorite of mine.
Yes, mine too.
Yeah.
She changes so much from the first time you see her to season 7.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ellie flirts with Craig.
Yes.
She really likes Craig. Her and Jimmy have like this cool friendship thing going on. And then she dates Jesse in college.
Yep.
And she has a thing with Marco for a little bit.
Yeah.
Is that all of them?
I think so. She basically is... Oh, no, Sean.
Oh, yes.
Sean.
Yes,
Yeah.
she dates Sean.
After the Breakfast Club episode.
Yeah.
So they have the Breakfast Club episode, and then they get together, and then they break up because Sean, after the shooting, Sean goes back to his parents.
Yes.
And Sega Beach.
And I'm glad that they didn't stay together.
Oh, interesting.
You liked them? Okay, I'm going to say who I put.
Yeah, I was going to say, I
win.
first wanted to mention, like, she tends to like going after people that she's not, like, that are, like, not interested in her. Like, that just, like, unattainable. Like, the thing with Marco and, like, they started off very good, but, like, it was getting to the point where it was kind of very clear that Marco was still figuring himself out. And, like, Ellie was kind of almost, like, doing him a favor with kind of, like, being his kind of, like, fake girlfriend.
Yeah.
But also was really kind of holding out that Marco would be into her. And then, even though Jimmy was probably not a bad potential partner for her, she was just lusting after Craig. And for a long time, that was really it. She was just so into Craig. And then she dates Jesse, who's also pretty terrible.
He's the worst.
He's such a jerk.
He's not as bad as Peter, but he is pretty bad.
He just kind of like uses that power over her as the editor and like cheats on her and is pretty mean to her also. And it's just, not a fan.
Not a
Also,
good
she was
relationship.
way more into him than he was into her.
Yes.
Same idea. So she just kind of tended to go after people who were not all that interested in her or be interested in people that were interested in her.
Yeah.
So did you want to go first or do you want me to?
I put her with Jimmy.
Okay.
I would have changed her. So now she's with Craig and Jimmy. But if she would have kind of let Craig go, her and Jimmy had a really cool thing there for a while.
Did. Yeah.
They brought out really great things in each other.
She helped him see a new part of himself.
Yes, it was so great.
Yeah.
That artsy side, because he was focused so much on this athletic side, and after the shooting, he couldn't be what he wanted to be anymore.
Right. Finding a new identity. Almost.
Yeah. And she really helped him through that and helped foster that and supported him through it all, and tried to get him to go to things and see if he would like it or not. But it never felt pushed.
No, definitely not. Yeah.
It just felt like she was helping him through figuring out what he wanted to do. And I think Jimmy liked her too.
Yeah.
They flirted
Jimmy was
a lot.
pretty into her.
And this was while Jimmy was dating Hazel, who I don't like. But you could tell that Jimmy liked Ellie more than Hazel.
Yeah. He like painted her face.
Yeah. Accidentally.
Accidentally, yeah.
He says.
Right. Yeah. I thought about that a lot when I wrote this because I actually thought they would have been good together as well. And I kind of like felt bad for Jimmy in the fact that he was pretty into her and like asks her out because like Ashley kind of pushes him too.
Yeah.
But he was still kind of in that place of like, no one's going to want to date me. I'm in a chair. And he was still like, maybe a year or two after, not even.
Yeah.
So he was still getting used to that. And he wasn't interested, which was kind of too bad.
It was.
But I did not go the same route as you. So my rewrite is that one, I got to write that there's no school shooting. So that didn't happen in my
that makes sense.
In my rewrite, and her and Sean stay together because of that.
Okay.
So I actually liked her and Sean together. I thought it was one, it's the only time that Ellie is interested in someone like that isn't like completely not interested in her.
Yeah.
So like that's a good sign of growth in some way. And like I don't know, they lived together like briefly because Sean was on his own, and then Ellie was having troubles with her mom.
Mm-hmm.
I actually was like super impressed with how they handled that. Like it didn't start well. That Sean threw a party and someone got alcohol poisoning, and like it got really bad at first. But just the fact that they were able to kind of like at that age live together and kind of like, I don't know, just managing that is really impressive.
That was impressive.
And you learn later that despite the fact they lived together, they never had sex. They like talked about it, and like I think that would be like really difficult as a teenager.
Yeah, Sean was so good about that.
He was like very respectful about things like that. They were always checking in on each other about things. Like she would check in on him about how he was doing. There was a couple, like when they have that episode where Sean goes back to Wasaga Beach, Ellie is kind of able to kind of like have him talk about things in a different way because he was really angry. He like went on a way or jet ski or whatever and went off and had to get saved, and just having just so much anger overcoming him. And then she was able to kind of like go back to him and talk to him after.
Yeah. And
there's a scene in that one earlier where Sean is super angry and he wants to go yell at his mom. And Ellie's like, maybe this isn't the best idea right now. And Emma's like, no, go do it. Go be angry. And Ellie's kind of like the more like, no, let's process your feelings a little bit. And
she's so good at that.
And she is. And he checks in with her about how she's doing, how home life was going before they moved in, about her cutting. He checked in about that stuff too. And
when she brought her case.
Yeah.
He asked her about it.
Yeah. And not in a way that was like, I always felt like with Ashley and Craig, Ashley was taking care of Craig when it came to his diagnosis of bipolar disorder.
Yeah.
I never got that sense from Ellie and Sean either. They were like taking care of each other. I just felt like it was like a mutual, like checking in, like respectful kind of thing. Like it wasn't one was kind of being the parent. They were both partners. So I really liked Ellie and Sean together. This is hard for me because I love Ellie so much. And it's hard to kind of put her in like any situation, like any kind of relationship, and kind of like say like this is the one for Ellie because I care about Ellie so much.
Yes.
But I think that her and Sean were good together.
Where do you think they would have gone in the future? Because that's why I didn't put them together. I didn't see their future happening.
That's a good question. I think that based on who Sean is and who is, I think it would have kind of followed like Ellie's kind of trajectory. Like Sean could be a mechanic or go in the army or whatever the case was, and Ellie can still kind of do her thing. Ellie stayed in Toronto for school, so like
that's true.
Didn't move away. So what was it about the future that you don't think?
I don't know.
Like
They
their
just
life goals, or
yeah. I don't know. I just had a feeling like it didn't seem like it was gonna last long term. I think they're really great friends. Yeah, and that could be great for both of them. But I didn't see the romantic part lasting.
Gotcha. You didn't see like the feels, and the chemistry lasting. I could see that when Sean came back after the shooting, he had no interest in talking to Ellie. Emma even says like, "Why aren't you going back with Ellie? I have a boyfriend. Like, why are you still after me?" And he's still more interested in Emma. Like that was still the one that got away more so than Ellie was. Yeah. But I don't know. I thought they were a lot more good, positive communicating than.
I'll agree with you there.
Yeah, than any of Ellie's other relationships, and even than Sean and Emma. Sean and Emma were good at communicating, but they had some stuff come out too. Which, if Ellie and Sean had continued dating on the TV show, they would have had problems because it's a TV show. They would have added drama in there where it wasn't. But because it was kind of short lived, actually, it wasn't super short lived. It was about a year that they dated. But because of the way it ended, it just wasn't the opportunity to kind of like throw drama between the two of them. Yeah. So it just looked like they had a very good relationship until something happened. And it was a very mature decision for Sean to kind of like, I need to like take some time after this traumatic thing happened in my life. And Ellie was disappointed but supportive, and
she's just so great.
She is. She really is. She was definitely. She has some moments like in the later seasons where I just kind of roll my eyes at her, but like I really liked her a lot. She was my favorite for a long time. She had that kind of sass and very quick-witted. I really
Yeah,
All right, so is it my turn now?
I think so.
Okay, let's do Manny. Manny Santos.
Yeah.
So we talked about her a little bit already in terms of like being so into Craig,
Yes.
dating Craig. Kind of like being the other woman for Craig, and then dating Spinner briefly.
Yes, very briefly.
The Spinner thing kind of happening with a fight between Spinner and Craig. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Spinner and Craig basically fight over Manny.
Yep.
Which was...
And Paige gets upset.
Yeah, because Paige was dating Spinner at the time. And Craig, was he dating Ashley at the time?
Ooh, I don't know.
I think they might have. I'm not sure. But he wasn't with Manny at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And then they broke up after the shooting because Manny found out about Spinner's role in the shooting. And Manny dated Craig again. And then Manny kind of flirts with Damien, but never really like gets together with Damien. Manny starts dating Jay.
Yes.
And eventually they break up. So in the movie, you find out that Manny starts dating one of her professors.
Oh, shucks.
Yeah. And he's like textbook abusive. Like you don't see him actually like hit her or anything like that, but he's very controlling about what she does. He puts her down a lot and like tries to isolate her from her friends and stuff. He's just a terrible, terrible person. They break up, thank goodness, and she gets back with Jay. So her and Jay are kind of at the end there together.
Okay.
So why don't you start with this one? Because I'm actually pretty proud of this one. I'll save it for the end.
Okay, I just put her with Jay because I really like them
together. Really? Okay. I thought about it, but I just don't like Jay.
I don't like Jay either, but like he really came around in season 7.
He did.
He supported her with her acting career. Mm-hmm. Really got along with her family. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, surprisingly.
Yeah, surprisingly, her dad doesn't like anyone, but he liked him.
And that was such a funny way to start dating. Like Manny starts dating him just to like make her dad upset, and then turns out her dad loves him.
Yeah. Yeah, I put them together. I liked them. I felt like they got each other.
Yeah. There's a part of the movie though that drives me crazy.
Uh-oh.
And Degrassi goes Hollywood. So this isn't like Manny's going out movie, but it's the first movie where I think they're fighting or broken up or something happens between the two of them. And Jay, she has to bring this like audition tape to her to the college so she can audition to be in the school. And Jay exchanges that tape with a sex tape.
Yes.
And like that to me that's too inexcusable. That's too much.
See, I saw that as just like an anger thing because he immediately corrects it. As like it was a very quick thing and he should have taken time to calm down. True.
But I think that's on the same level as Ashley and Jimmy. Like Ashley, like this is a breakup move. That's not a we're fighting move. That's not a like let's try to reconcile move. That's a we're breaking up move. Mm-hmm. That's pretty intense. And there's a couple other things like him lying about his parents, which I can kind of see, but
yeah, there were definitely some red flags that I saw there. But I didn't like her with anyone else.
I didn't either. So you ready for this?
Is she by herself too?
Nope. This is a storyline I rewrote. So Manny and Craig get together at Paige's birthday party after Craig and Ashley have a fight.
Okay.
So Manny had just she also dates Sully, who's also a terrible human being, who's only in a few episodes. So she breaks up with Sully right before this party. So she's kind of sad at this party while everything's going on. You know who else might be sad at that party? So the party took place at Ashley Kerwin's house. And Jimmy Brooks, maybe he attends that party for Paige's birthday. But it's also like, man, it's really hard being in my ex-girlfriend's house with her new boyfriend. So he starts talking to Manny. And even though it kind of starts out of them being sad, they start to like grow closer, and Jimmy and Manny end up together.
Ooh.
So that
didn't even cross my mind.
Honestly, Manny took me a super long time to come up with because I was honestly just going to give her the correct treatment and say she stays single. But I was like, wait a second. There could be another character that I'm not thinking about. So I went through the list and I was like, okay.
Good call.
what about Jimmy? Like Jimmy is, I don't know how often they interact.
Yeah.
So I can't really speak to why I think this would work. I think it's just because like I think Jimmy's really respectful.
Yes.
He's a good boyfriend.
And she needs that.
And she needs that. And I think that putting her with Jimmy, and this is before Jimmy is shot or before he starts dating Hazel even, so like Jimmy's single, it's not like a bad situation. Like I think that Manny would be into Jimmy as well. I think that it's not like I try to put her with Toby or something like that.
Yeah.
Like that there just wouldn't be any chemistry or like she'd be like really dating down in terms of looks or something like that, or dating someone who she was like clearly friends with and not interested in. Like they just never had this like crossing paths. So I was like, what would happen if they did cross paths?
Which is interesting because she dated Spinner and Jimmy.
That was when Spinner and Jimmy were friends. Yeah.
But
it was such a brief Spinner and Manny. And I wasn't really a huge fan of that either.
Me neither.
So it's, again, I don't have a whole lot of reason. It's just kind of a, call it fan fiction, I guess, of
I love it.
Manny and Jimmy together. So we have time for about one more.
Okay.
We're coming up on the hour mark here. So I'll give you the honor of picking our very last one.
Let's do Spinner.
Let's do Spinner. Okay. Spinner starts by kind of almost being into Terry in the dance, but they never get together. He and Paige kind of have a flirtation for a while. Then Paige unfortunately gets sexually assaulted. And they kind of go in different directions. Eventually, though, Paige and Spinner do get together. I think that's Spinner's first girlfriend.
I think so.
Yeah, I think so. And then he dates Manny after he gets like just tired of Paige. And then he dates Darcy.
Yes.
And then he dates Jane. I don't think I'm missing anyone else.
And then he ends up with Emma.
Then he ends up with married to Emma at the very end. And Holly J is into him too at one point.
Oh.
I think it was while him and Jane were dating, but Holly J is like very like crushing on Spinner because Holly J starts dating the Dot, and that's the episode that Spinner gets shot.
Oh, okay.
Interesting episode, but yeah, eventually Spinner and Jane break up, and he gets married to Emma.
Not who I would have put him with.
Yeah, no. So who did you put him with?
I put him with Jane.
Yeah,
I really like
Same.
Jane. They worked so well together. They had similar interests.
They would allude to how Jane was basically a female version of Spinner.
Yes.
Yeah. They were really fun together. He was really supportive of her, even when she was going through like the thing with the football team where they were like being awful to her and abusing her and putting her in a really terrible situation. And Spinner, like, he got angry, which isn't, always super helpful, but like he was super supportive also.
Yeah. And she was there for him during his cancer.
Yeah. That's a big one. Like, that was the beginning of their relationship.
Yes.
He has cancer.
Yeah.
Like, that's a tough way to start a relationship. And they worked through it pretty well. Like, he had some moments where he was struggling with it, but she was always trying to like get him to like talk about it.
Yeah, there were some hiccups, but
yeah, for sure. But yeah, my rewrite was that she doesn't cheat on him with Declan, I think his name is, because that's what breaks them up. Is she cheats on him. Yeah.
Dramas.
And then Spinner doesn't find out until like way after the cheating happened. So the cheating happened, she stops it. It happened for like a couple weeks. So it wasn't like extensive, but he finds out like later during the movie. And that's part of what starts Spinner being really upset, along with the Dot being burned down. And that's why Emma and Manny and Jay try to cheer him up, and then that's how he gets married.
And then he marries Emma. And
then Jane like tracks him. Jane like comes from New York back to Toronto to like stop the wedding. Yeah.
Well, what happens?
She walks up to him while he's in his tux about to get married. This is so funny that I get to tell you this. Unless you want to watch it.
No, please tell me.
So, Jane basically like sees Spinner and like all this, like she's so worked up about like we're stopping this wedding. Basically, the second she sees Spinner, she like realizes that it's not a good idea, and like it gives them closure, I guess. on their breakup, but it was just very strange because like Jane like was like on a mission to get to this, to stop this wedding, and then all of a sudden she sees Spinner and is like, oh, this isn't a good idea. Go marry Emma. Go have a good life. And then Manny sees it, which is kind of funny. So Manny sees Jane like saying goodbye to Spinner and thinks the worst.
Of course.
Because, you know,
it's a drama.
It had to happen. But he ends up going through with the wedding and with Emma, and Jane just kind of like hangs out and goes on with her life, I guess.
Yeah.
I think Jane was like valedictorian or something. She was like really impressive student, really impressive like in lots of ways, and I don't know. I like them together. Definitely some hiccups, but yeah. I had the same thing. I had them.
Perfect. I'm glad we ended on agreeing.
Do you want to go through just real quickly and other things we have, just like rapid fire, not talking about it? Okay. Do you want to start or do you want to go first?
No, you can go first.
So Jimmy Brooks, we didn't talk about. I have Jimmy staying with Trina at the end. I like them together.
Oh, yes. I like them together too.
Mostly because they weren't around long enough to have something dramatic happen.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What happened.
Very true.
Hazel, I just wrote that the shooting doesn't happen and she stays with Jimmy just because there weren't a lot of options. Hazel, I think, was kind of underutilized as a character. She had like one storyline.
Yep.
The entire show.
And then it's just Paige again.
Yeah. We talked about Craig. We talked about Marco. We didn't talk about Paige.
No, we didn't.
So I have, I cheated with Paige. So I did 2 rewrites with Paige.
Okay.
So one, that she doesn't go to that party with Dean. So she ends up going on the date with Spinner instead of going to that party. Yeah. So 1, she doesn't get assaulted and doesn't have to go through that. And 2, and the other rewrite I did is Spinner doesn't get tired of her. Because that was such a terrible, like, the way they broke up was so weird.
He just totally changed how he interacted with her.
And Spinner is such a good boyfriend. Like, for as bad as Spinner is to other people, he's a pretty good boyfriend. Mm-hmm. And was a very good boyfriend to Paige, was so supportive through all she went through.
Yes.
And then just to kind of like, they kind of played it up as like him being upset about his car being totaled. Mm-hmm. But like really it was, he just didn't like her anymore.
Yeah.
It was very strange. I did not like it. Anyway. Terry McGregor, I had her just getting with Spinner in season 1 during that time where the dance, I don't know if that would have continued, but who knows. Jay I have with Manny. Toby, the rewrite I have is that Kendra doesn't get written off the show. He starts dating Spinner's sister.
Oh, okay.
And then Kendra just never comes back.
Mm-hmm.
JT just doesn't die. That was my rewrite. Stays with Mia.
But he was going to go tell Liberty how he felt.
I never liked him and Liberty.
Okay, me neither. Good. So, I have JT with Mia too.
Yeah. I think that Liberty was so... And I think that... Well, I'll get to that in a second. And then lastly, I have Liberty... The rewrite I have for Liberty is that JT isn't so self-conscious about the size of his penis and uses a regular size condom and they don't get pregnant.
Yes.
So I think a lot of that was where things started to get wrong, where she stopped kind of appreciating the things that made JT.
Yeah.
Like he was always, you know, a goofball. And then she also hated that about him because things changed. So what do you got?
Okay. So I put JT and Mia together. JT loves kids. Mia as a kid.
Yeah.
That seemed to go very well.
I thought they were good together.
Yeah. I agree with the Paige and Spinner thing. Mm-hmm. I wish that would have switched or changed. Yeah. But if I couldn't rewrite it, then I'd put her with Alex because I just really wanted them to work.
I did too, but they were so different.
They were not good for each other, but I really wanted them to work.
I was the same way. I wanted to include them, but Alex was just so different.
But I think Alex was on her way to... She just wasn't at the same place as Paige, but I think it could have worked out in the future.
That's true. I could definitely see that.
You know,
like Alex kind of changed her life.
She did in the later seasons, and so I think they just kind of met at the wrong time. If they would have tried later on down the road.
Yeah, theirs was one where it's like the chemistry and the cuteness was there, but like that communication piece wasn't.
Yes, yeah, the communication was not good. I put Liberty with Damien, which is the guy that cheats on Emma. Yeah. They're so similar.
They are.
People.
Yeah.
Like they fight for valedictorian.
Yeah.
They seem like they're going in the same direction
Mm-hmm.
with their life. And then I put Darcy and Peter together. As much as I dislike Peter and I wanted him to be with no one, Darcy and him work.
They did, and he was very supportive after all that Darcy went
Yep.
through. Man, I just hate Peter.
I do too. But somehow, like, he did change a lot when he was with Darcy.
He did.
And he was a better person.
Mm-hmm. Did they broke up, right? Because, Darcy goes to Africa.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Peter starts dating Mia. Did you not get that far yet?
No.
Yeah, Peter and Mia start dating. That doesn't go great either, from what I remember. They weren't bad together, but they weren't.
I just could not see them together.
Yeah, I just had trouble with Peter, like, continually, like, starting to date people, even though he was just awful.
Yes.
Especially Emma. There's no reason Peter and Emma should have dated.
No reason at all.
Terrible.
That was
terrible, dude.
Especially after what he did with Manny.
Yeah, like her best friend. He filmed her best friend like naked and then distributed it to the school, and then Emma starts dating him later.
Bad decision.
Makes zero
Emma.
sense. Zero sense.
Ugh.
Awful.
Yes, very. I think that's all I had.
Yeah.
I didn't do Terry or Hazel.
Okay.
I just didn't have enough storyline from them to put them with anyone.
Yeah. And Terry had just a really rough dating experience.
And then Toby is barely, like, he's in the show, but he's really not in the show.
Yeah. They basically write him off after season 2 or 3. He's basically barely in it.
He's in it every once in a while.
Yeah.
So I didn't put him with anyone either.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anyone else worth mentioning.
I think we got all the main people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So that's our. Any last words or anything?
No.
Okay, I have one more for you, actually.
Oh.
Okay. So, teenage Sarah Kuborn starts at Degrassi.
Yes.
Where does she end up? Who does she date? What's her storyline?
Oh, who's the person?
What's your storyline for Sarah Kuborn at Degrassi?
Okay, let's see. I probably definitely would have crushed on Craig.
Right.
Ellie would have been my best friend.
Okay.
Maybe Ashley too, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Manny would have, I probably wouldn't have ever talked to her. I probably would have gotten myself into a bad situation with Jay, just because I wasn't very smart when I was younger. So something like what happened with Emma probably would have happened. But I don't think I would end up with any of them. Any of these people. Marco probably would have been my best friend too.
Okay. So you would have hung out with Marco and Ellie.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I would have lived with them in their house when they went to college.
You would have been there instead of Paige, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would have worked.
But I don't see myself dating anyone.
Okay.
I mean, I'm definitely very attracted to Alex.
Mm-hmm.
She's got that bad girl thing going on. But it would not have worked. And like everyone else is fine.
Yeah.
I just wasn't very
high school
attracted
you
to
wouldn't
them.
have been. Yeah.
Craig would have been the top one.
Yeah.
Because I loved musicians. I mean, I still do. I'm married to one, so.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Damien, if he wouldn't have been such a not okay guy.
Yeah.
With the sexual romantic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I like intelligence as well. So
I thought he was like witty and kind of a fun character. He was just also kind of a jerk.
Yeah. I mean, seems like everybody has to be in a drama.
That's true.
At some point. Which is sad. Yeah, what's your story, Eric? What would your life be like?
Gosh. So high school me would have been way too shy to talk to anyone, probably. So I have to figure out how to work around that. Let me think. I wouldn't have been friends with Sean. Like when I watched the show as a kid, I really didn't like Sean. I gained a greater appreciation of him as an adult, but like I wouldn't have liked him. I don't know. maybe I would have been friends with Craig, but Craig's kind of a jerk. I probably more like would have been friends with JT more than anything else. Maybe Jimmy. I think Jimmy and JT would be the ones that I'd be more likely to be friends with because of like sports and like things like that. In terms of dating, though, someone would have to be really like. It would have to be someone more like outgoing that would have to like go after me more than I go after them. I was way too shy.
Yeah.
So it'd have to be someone really outgoing. I don't know who that would be.
Paige.
Yeah, let's go with that. Paige. Because I don't think, as much as I loved Ellie, I don't think Ellie would have ever been outgoing enough where that would have been a romantic thing. We just wouldn't have talked, probably, unless we had enough mutual friends.
Manny is pretty outgoing.
Manny's pretty outgoing. Let's go with Manny.
Yeah, I think that'd be
a
better fit.
I'll take that. Because Paige was outgoing, but I don't think she would have gone for someone like really shy and like
no.
Because like I would definitely not have been like super popular in this crowd. There's too many attractive people at the school for me to like.
Yeah, seriously.
You know, and like I think that like based on like where they started, like they didn't like try to do that. Like for like the queen bee popular, like most attractive girl, like Paige isn't like over the top attractive. Like
no.
She's pretty normal body size and stuff. And I thought that was kind of cool too. And then, you know, Emma and Manny, well, Emma was pretty awkward looking and then grew into someone who was very good looking, and Manny kind of the same way. Liberty too.
Yeah.
Kind of. They all
just
kind of like
those early teen years.
Whoever was the casting director for the show, like could see the potential.
Yes. So these people are going to be very attractive.
And thanks to you for listening today. If you want to become a part of Relevation Nation and get daily information about romantic relationships, or just want to learn more about Relevate, like us on Facebook at facebook.com/myrelevate, follow us on Twitter @myrelevate, or on Instagram at instagram.com/myrelevate. Special thanks to our producer and the composer of our opening music, Denzel Jones. See you next time.